Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Stuart Irongoss McCown and it has been a while. I'm aware of that. Many explanations, but the main one being that I make most of my content over at the Onwards Patreon now. So if you want to see between 5 to 8 videos that I produce a month, then head over to there. I will try to do more stuff on the YouTube, but of course you can understand that doing like 15 videos a month while doing all the other stuff I'm doing in life is a little bit complicated, okay? So that's why, this channel's been a bit barren this year, but I will continue to do book reviews and stuff. If you guys have any ideas for videos and stuff, do send them through on Twitter and that. Someone did ask me on Twitter to make a video for FEC, and that's why I'm doing it. So keep those suggestions coming through. So, today we're looking at Flesh Eater Courts. Now, I love this army. You all know that. It's gone through a million iterations since the first book, the second book. The second book came out in 2019. Okay, which is, 4 years ago. So we're talking a while now since our lads have got a new book. And we finally got one where the last army at the end of third. It took a while, but we're finally here, and we have a very interesting book. Okay? Now, I kind of want to go through this. I'm not doing a tier list in the sense that they're not going to get placed on a tier list, but I will give the units a rating from F to S, okay? With S obviously being the top rating and F being the bottom. You can kind of think of it as like S is sort of an auto-include unit that's amazing. A is like solid. B is decent but maybe has some problems. C is probably bad. D to F are all bad, but if I put something in F, that means basically if you put it in a list, you're probably trolling, okay? Maybe I should call that T tier, trolling tier, but no, we'll call it F. But basically, if something is in F tier, which there's, I think, a couple of units in this book that I will put in F tier, it means that this is just a completely useless war scroll until it gets changed, okay? So, that's what I'm going to do. We're obviously going to go through the allegiance abilities first. Now, just at the outset here, I'll say that I am a little bit worried that this book is overpowered. There's a particular interaction between the allegiance abilities, which I'll get to in a second, which has me most worried. Okay, so let's go through it. So, with Flesh Eater Courts, obviously, we get a subfaction. Now, it used to be that you had to pick between getting a subfaction and a delusion, but you now can get both. So, you pick a subfaction, and the main allegiance ability of this army is called Noble Deeds. Okay, so what do Noble Deeds do? Well, you get a point if you successfully cast a spell that's not unbound, or you successfully chant a prayer. Okay, and then also, if you do damage in combat, you give basically the hero the number of Noble Deed points equal to the number of wounds and or mortal wounds caused by that hero that were allocated to enemy units. Okay, and you don't count them out. Sorry, Terraghost. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, from the outset looking at this, I kind of think that it's much easier to get Noble Deeds in combat than it is from doing spells and prayers, okay? Because, alright, most prayers are on 3-ups, so if you pray for, 5 battle rounds, you're probably going to get 2 points from that. If you're a single caster, I think you might even get less. You might get, potentially you get 1 spell off if you're versing like a magical dominant army. If you're playing at Croak, for example, you might get 0 spells off the whole game with the hero, right? So it's much easier to get Noble Deed points in combat, like significantly easier, okay? So that's kind of an observation there. But overall quite difficult to get from this battle trait. Okay, now if you do manage to get 6 Noble Deed points, then you add 1 to the characteristic of melee weapons used by FEC units wholly within 12 of any friendly heroes with 6 deed points. Okay, so obviously Feeding Frenzy used to be fight twice, but +1 attack without having to spend a command point is really good. The problem you had with Feeding Frenzy before is if you wanted to spend a CP on all-out attack or all-out defense, you couldn't because you needed to do Feeding Frenzy. It was extremely easy to get Roared, okay, or have some other command ability, or some other ability that stopped you using command abilities, right? There's plenty of those in the game, so that was the problem with Feeding Frenzy. So it looks like a downgrade, but it's kind of not. Like, it makes the army quite a different sort of army, right? Because it used to be with Fect that you just fight like in one place. So you just send like one buffed up unit in and then fight. And your stuff was so paper thin for the most part. Morgaunt aside, when that was a thing. For most of the history of Fect, you've had this like fragile playstyle. You send the Terrorgeist in, you fight with the Terrorgeist, and you don't send anything else in combat because it will die. Okay, that tend to be the playstyle. So now we have more of an incentive to play a grindy playstyle. Okay, because we get the bonus across multiple units. Like you can have 3 heroes with 6 deed points and get a massive 3 points to have +1 attack. So yeah, different incentives there. And then we have some other stuff you can do with deed points. So the first one is for Courtiers, which is at the end of your movement phase, each friendly Courtier can spend 1 of their deed points to return 1 slain model to a friendly Serfs unit that's within 10, or 2 deed points to return 1 slain model to a friendly Knights unit that's within 10. And you can use this ability multiple times each turn as long as the required noble deeds points are available. Now, what's interesting about this one is you don't need to have 6, right? So you can do some really like gradual recursion here. You can just have a Courtier that chants a prayer and gets 1 noble deed point, and then you can just return 1 Serf if you need it, right? Potentially you can get some more movement out of this because it's at the end of the movement phase, right? You can move, return a model, and then get some extra distance, which is cool. What's cool about this is you could move, stay outside of 9 for redeploy, and then pop a model, within 1 inch of your unit, but effectively giving you a shorter charge because you just put it 1 inch away from you, but in front of you. And of course you end up in 9, but that doesn't count as part of the move, right? So you're going to avoid redeploy that way. Now, with particularly units that have large base sizes, for example, the new Knights, that makes playing around redeploy insanely easy. You just go 9 away, maybe you bring 1 model back, you have +1 to charge on your war scroll, maybe you have the +1 to charge from the delusions, which I'll get into in a second, and you're going to have a really short charge, okay? And you don't have to deal with redeploy. So, in addition to a durability buff, this is also a speed buff, okay? Because a lot of the time you're going to just return 1 model to get a faster charge. Okay, then Summon Loyal Subjects. So this one does take 6 noble deed points, and only abhorrents can do it. And what you do is you basically pick a unit that's been destroyed, and you return it to your army with half the models from the unit, rounding up. And you set it wholly within 6 of the edge, and more than 9 from enemy units. But you can return models to it with Muster Guard or Rally. Okay, now this is what I'm worried about. Okay, because that is really dumb. I don't think that you should be able to do them both on the same turn. You notice they have the same timing, right? So you can bring a unit back and then immediately muster to it. Okay, now why is that a problem? Well, it means that this is not really 9 away. Okay, for most units, it's going to mean 7 away, but there are for example, the Knights units, this means you're effectively gaining 3 inches, so because they have 50mm bases, so you're going to basically get a 6-inch charge. And then the new cavalry guys, the Morbeg Knights, it's not even that. I think theirs is a 5, and then you get bonuses to charge anyway. So this effectively is going to mean if you have an abhorrent and a Courtier, as long as the Courtier can move to be within 10, right, of the unit that needs to return models, you can effectively get back a whole unit and then charge with them at the end of the movement phase. Which is horrible. It's just horrible to deal with, okay? Now, you're going to have kind of a weakness in the middle of the board, right? Because you do still have to bring them back wholly within 6 of the board edge. So you're going to have a bit of a weakness in the middle of the board. So battle plans that kind of a little bit central. So, for example, no reward without risk might be bad for this because a lot of the objectives are kind of close to the center. But you're still going to be able to charge something. Yeah, so I think this is just kind of insanely strong. I don't know if that's going to last a long time, because it's going to make the army a little bit frustrating to play against, but you can definitely see the incentive for having both Courtiers and Abhorrents, because it's a little bit of a power combo. So, looking at these battle traits, you can see that they're all centered around the heroes, and this army is going to be massively reliant on heroes for sure. Okay, and then finally, yeah, we have a 6-up ward. Okay, we know that. Now, the delusions, you get to pick a delusion in addition to the subfaction. Also, shout out to AOS Coach for letting me use the slides. I forgot to say that, but yeah, legend. Go watch his video. It was great. And yeah, you'll get a different opinion than mine, but more opinions is great when you're starting to get into a Battletome, because we all have our different takes on these sorts of things. Okay, so Courts of Delusion. All right, so you pick one of these, but after the game starts and after priority's done. So, you know, maybe you're high drop, maybe you're low drop. You decide what you're gonna do, and then this happens. Okay, so Royal Hunt, +1 to wound against monsters. Obviously incredibly situational, but in the games it does happen. It's great. So versus Gargants, +1 to wound for your whole army. Mega. Crusading Army, +1 to run and charge. Great. Defenders of the Realm. Add 1 to save rolls if you're contesting an objective you control. Very good, obviously. Not going to be amazing on every battle plan, but if you have a home objective that you can literally sit one model on from a massive unit, then, I mean, obviously it's great. It's great for heroes as well. Kind of gives them an extra little bit of durability. Grand Tournament, +1 to hit from heroes that are not a general if they made a charge move in the same turn. That one is not so good, but I mean, maybe it's okay. You might do it sometimes, but obviously it's a little bit limited. And then Feast Day, Feeding Frenzy applies when you have 4 or more Noble Deeds instead of 6 Noble Deed points. I think this one is like kind of fairly weak, to be honest. But you might use it if... Yeah, I don't know. I can't really see myself picking that at the start of the game, right? It's too situational. So unless you have a way to get an extra delusion, which you do with Assurin, it's probably not going to be one that you pick at the start of the game. I think most of the time, you're going to go with Crusading Army or Defenders of the Realm, right? +1 to run and charge, or I think most often you're going to go +1 save on objectives. Okay, then we have heroic actions. So the first one is, this is super important, and kind of tilts your army into building a particular way. Okay, so you can pick one friendly Fresh Eater Courts hero and roll dice for each other effect. I think, yeah, unit wholly within that hero. I believe that it's unit, yeah. And then on 5-up, you give +1 deed points to that hero. I mean, I think it's good for particularly the Courtiers because they're going to struggle with getting noble deed points. So this can be a way to do it. I mean, I think you can do it in both your turn and your opponent's turn. So, yeah, I mean, that's mega, right? An easy way to get it that doesn't rely on casting spells or fighting in combat or whatever. Then we have Scent of Blood. I love this, by the way. This is like one of my favorite abilities. So you pick one Feck hero and roll a dice. On a 3-up, you can move D6. But you have to finish more than 3 from enemy units. So, gives you a bit of speed. If you're stuffed up and you're out of an aura range, this is a great way to get back in it. Alright, we all do it. So it's a good way to get back in. And it's also a way to kind of like retreat, which was interesting. So yeah, solid unit. Solid ability. And then we have some Monstrous Rampages that are both pretty bad. But if you have a Terrorgeist or Zombie Dragon, you can basically eat some models and then heal 1 wound, whatever, and then you can make a unit -2 bravery, also kind of whatever. Yeah, I mean, bear. Okay, so those are the battle traits, obviously very strong, but you can see definitely most of them are related to taking heroes. Okay, so we have all the gear. Alright, I'm going to kind of like speed through this because I want to get to the War Scrolls, but there's some important ones here we have to cover. So, okay, Abhorrent General, Shadow I'm never going to say that. Obfuscation. Someone tell me how to say that. The general's not visible to enemy models that are more than 12 inches away from them. This is the only reason you would ever take a monster like an Abhorrent on a Ghoul King or a Terrorgeist is his command trait. If you're taking that, you need to take this because otherwise he's just immediately going to get shut off. If he has this, he's actually a pain in the dick for shooting armies, alright? Like, I don't know how you kill him. Like, if you're playing Cities of Sigmar with Fusiliers, I don't know how you kill the Terrorgeist. I mean, he might be too intimidated to come in and do anything, but you kind of want to kill the heroes, right? So this is kind of annoying for a bunch of armies. It's quite good. Feverish Scholar, +1 to cast, Dispelling, and Unbinding, and if you have 6 Noble Deed points, you get +2. It's okay. I mean, bonuses to cast are a little bit weaker than they were in previous editions, or previous GHBs because of the Primal Dice thing. So I tend to think of it as it makes your casts that don't use Primal Dice quite a bit better. So usually you'd take this on someone who has a key spell, but you kind of also need to run another key spell in your army. So I don't know, an example would be putting this on an Archregent who wants to cast Deranged Transformation, which is the best spell, and Chalice, which is the best endless spell. You kind of do both, and probably your opponent's only going to be able to deny one of those. So it can help push through the other one that maybe both of you don't have any Primal Dice. It can be useful for that. But overall, maybe you're not going to take it. Okay, Master of the Menageries. Basically, you can use the Summon Loyal Subjects thingy on the non-hero Terrorgeist and Zombie Dragon, which are both terrible, and you can return them with 6 wounds allocated. I mean, at least you can bring them back, but no. I don't believe in this even slightly. Then we have the Courtier Generals. Stronger Madness, add 2 to the General's wounds. And while they have 6 Noble Deed points, they have a ward of 5 up. People will skip over this, but that's actually just generically a very good command trait. I think if you're looking to get Spellcasting Savant, you probably want to take that. Cruel Taskmaster. Basically, if you use Muster Guard, you add 1 model to Serfs. So if you use 1 point, you can bring back 2 Serfs, and you only need 1 point to bring back a Knight. That's great. But the problem with Courtiers is kind of getting the Noble Deeds points. I mean, you basically are going to be doomed to spanning the heroic action with the guy who's got this. It's a very strong command trait, but yeah, there is an argument that you should just take the stronger Madness one, for sure. Savage Beyond Reason, you get Exploding 6s, and if you have 6 Noble Deed points, you get 3 hits. I think this is fun, but I think even on a Vargulf, probably Cruel Taskmaster is better. Yeah. It's interesting. The problem with this is that the timing is just kind of awkward. Like, let's say you do the heroic action and you get to 6, and then at the end of the movement phase, you probably have something you need to heal. So then you use the points, but then you don't have the Exploding 6s, and then you fight, and then you get back up to 6, but now, like, you've already fought, so it doesn't matter that you can get 3 hits instead of 2. So you understand, like, the timing is awkward. Whereas, like, Stronger in Madness, even I know it takes the Vargulf to 10 wounds, which is obviously bad, right? You don't get Lookout Sir, but at least you can, like, go in, hit, and then get a 5-up ward afterwards. You know what I mean? So the timing makes more sense for Vargulf. Stronger in Madness, I think. Okay, then we have Royal Treasury. This should be -2 for Grimgile. That's just a mistake here, but -2 for enemy units within 9. And then once per battle in the hero phase, the bearer can use this artifact for Blood River Chalice. So in your turn or your opponent's turn, you can heal 2d3 to the bearer. And then the last one is Heart of the Gargant, which I think is just good. Terrorgeist one, kind of. You get +1 attack for melee weapons used by the bearer and a mount once per game. I think even on a Terrorgeist, I would rather take one of the other 2 ones. Then for Courtier, we have Medal of Madness. Once per battle round, it should be battle round, the bearer can issue a command without a command point being spent, and they're treated as a general if they do. Solid. Flayed Penance reroll charges. Decent. And the Charnel Vestments makes them a priest, which you're probably going to take in almost every list, because not only does it give you access to a prayer, but it also makes it much easier to generate Noble Deed points for that hero. So you're probably going to take that in literally every fact list ever. Cool. Then we have the spell laws. Okay. So we have Miasmal Shroud, which I think is bin. I'm not going to read it. I don't like it. We have Deranged Transformation. We have the best spell here. So basically, you add 2 to the move characteristic and +1 to wound. For a Flesh-Eater Courts highly within range that has a wounds characteristic of 7 or less. And if it's 10 or more, you can pick 3 different friendly units to be affected instead of 1, which is obviously great. Crimson Rituals, I think, is also kind of bin. It's a little bit too conditional, but maybe is good in specific builds. So yeah, I think the spell lore is basically Deranged Transformation and Hoarfrost. Okay, just think about it that way. The other 2 spells are just not... I don't think this is an army you're going to spam the hell out of wizards with either, so... yeah, I think it's decent, but... yeah, Deranged Transformation is a massive highlight, and the other 2 not so much. Okay, the prayers. In my opinion, all 3 of these are good. So, Bless This Meal, basically, is 4 if you're taking Ashuron and maybe a Terrorgeist, but basically, you pick one enemy unit within range, and when a model is slain, you can heal 1 friendly Flesh Eater Quartz unit 1 wound. So, you can't bring back models, but you kill a model from that unit, and then you heal one of your models. Now, what's quite nice about this is it's not like your opponent removes a model and then you measure 6 from that model. You just measure 6 from the whole unit. So it actually has a much bigger range than you would think, because normally with these sorts of effects, you go in and then your opponent just removes models from the back and you can't heal. But this one, assuming this wording is correct, yeah, it will just heal you fairly unconditionally, right? As long as you're just kind of in combat with that unit. So super good for keeping Ashuron alive. Also quite good, I think also if you're taking the Terrorgeist and stuff, but I don't think those are super competitive. But yeah, I think it's a solid spell for the big man. Prayer for the big man. Then we have Summon King's Favor. Okay, so you pick 1 Feck hero wholly within range, and to your next hero phase, that hero gains 1 Noble Deed point each time they slay an enemy model. Now, it doesn't say in melee, so, and I believe I've verified this with the actual book as well instead of this write-up. But basically, that means that for now, this is a good prayer, because it means that you can get Noble Deed points, you know, for example, in the shooting phase, or if you have some kind of way to do wounds with magic, that kind of thing, right? So, for now, it's quite good. If it gets nerfed to only work in melee, it's quite whatever. It can be good to put on, like, a small hero that you think is only going to do 3 damage. So, for example, like, the Decapitator guy who, like, fights and then can make your Serfs fight. Can be quite good to put on him, right? Because you can, you know, probably get, like, 3 damage out of him. Like, one of his attacks goes through, and then he's going to get to 6. And then you fight with the unit with +1 attack. So, it can be quite good for that. Okay, then we have Charnel Conviction, which gives a unit 5-up ward. Obviously, that's incredible. I think just about every build will take this. Probably on the guy who's got the priest artifact. But yeah, can't be unbound. 5-up ward is great. You can stack Mystic Shield and 5-up ward on something and it becomes massively durable. Super good. Alright, and then we have some mount traits. If you're going to take these units. So the Zombie Dragon +1 Rend to its breath. That's been. You can do Death from the Skies, which gives it the same setup as the normal Zombie Dragon. Also kind of been. And +1 to hit for monsters. Hollywood in 12, I think, is the best one by a mile there. And then we have Terrorgeist +1 attack for Fang Moore. Decent. The heals 2d3, decent. And Retreat and Charge, I think, is probably the best one for me. But yeah, they're decent, but not amazing. I think you can kind of tell how I feel about the monsters already. Okay, so the Subfactions. I think there's one standout here, and then one that's close, and the other 2 I'm not really sold on. So, Morgaunt, I think, is the best one. So, you get 1 Noble Deed point to each friendly hero that's contesting an objective at the end of the turn. So, that makes it, like, massively easy to get Noble Deed points. I mean, that's, like, a potentially 10 Noble Deed points addition per hero the whole game. So, you probably want to take that, I think. And it also makes Crypt Guard battle line. Blister Skin, Abhorrents get the priest keyword, but they can't cast enchants prayers in the same phase. It's okay. It's just okay. Yeah. I mean, you get to take a prayer, which is nice, so maybe the more conditional ones you'll get access to, but it's just sort of awkward to ride an army list with this. Like, do you end up taking 5 Abhorrents and 1 Courtier with the priest thing or something? Or Do you take no courtiers, but then you don't get any muster? I don't know. It's a bit weird to me. I can't really envisage the way that list building would work in Blister Skin. It makes Crypt Flayers battle line, but Crypt Flayers are better at Hollow Morn because they get +1 damage when they charge. So the Knights that are affected by this are the Crypt Horrors, the Crypt Flayers, and the Morbeg Knights. They get +1 damage on the Rider weapons for the Morbeg Knights, but just the normal attacks for the Crypt Flayers and Horrors, which is solid. And Hollowborn makes Crypt Horrors battle line. And then Grissagore makes your monsters battle line, and you get strikes first for 1 Grissagore monster at the start of the combat phase, but it only works in your turn, so whatever. It's okay. So yeah, I think Morgaunt is like the best one, and then Hollowmorn short second, and then the other two I probably wouldn't look at personally. Okay, grand strats. The grand strats are not good. So so first one, if you have 3 heroes on the battlefield, so first of all, that's hard. And then they've each got to have 6 noble deed points. I don't like that. I think that's way too hard. Expand the kingdom. If you get an abhorrent wholly within enemy territory and the enemy general is not wholly within enemy territory, I think, again, the 2 conditions, it's too hard. Like, if it's just abhorrent wholly within enemy territory, that's fine. But, yeah, both of them is too much, I think. Defend the throne. You complete this grand strat if a friendly Charnel Throne is on the battlefield and it's garrisoned by a Flesh Eater Courts hero and there's no enemy units within 6 of it. If you really can't find anything better, this is decent. But what I don't like about it is obviously if the Charnel Throne is destroyed, like if it's destroyed by a monster's rampage, then you can't garrison it, so you'd lose it. So if you literally just deploy the Charnel Throne at the back and can make sure you get a hero there at the end of the game and not be versing an army that can just put something there, for example, enemy feck, then it's going to work, but I probably would prefer a generic one over this, which I think is probably going to be Spellcasting Savant for a lot of players. Okay, battle tactics. We have Scream to Death. You pick 1 enemy unit on the battlefield, and you complete it if it's destroyed this turn by a Crypt Flayers unit, Infernal Courtier, or Royal Terrorgeist with their shooting attacks. If you're building this way, then it might be alright, but I generally don't like to pick 1 enemy unit on the battlefield and destroy it once, which is why I also don't like this next one, which is pick 1 enemy monster and destroy it with an abhorrent. Now, this can be kind of okay if you just like have old mate Ushoran in combat with something that he definitely can kill, but yeah, this one is a little bit vulnerable to leaving stuff on 1 wounds and failing a battle tactic, and I don't generally choose those. Overrun, if every enemy on the battlefield is within 3 of a feck unit at the end of the turn, is terrible. I almost would never pick this. I think the Khorne one, which was 8, was a trap. This one is like, I've already lost the game and I have 1 guy alive, and he's not going to die. Maybe I can do this. If I've lost the game already, this can be a recovery mechanic, but not recovering a victory, but just in teams getting some points. But realistically, not a very good tactic. Glorious Feast. If every friendly unit on the battlefield is wholly within 12 of a hero that has 6 deed points, that one's quite good. Yeah, I think that's definitely manageable. This might be like a turn 3 sort of deal. You maybe can do it turn 1 if you roll well enough on the heroic action. Like, let's say you go second and you manage to get 6 points on a hero, then you can potentially just go like, all right, I'm not really going to do much, and I'm just going to get everyone within range of this hero and get a battle tactic. It can be a good like last resort. Lance Formation, if 2 or more friendly knights units make a charge move and the charge rolls was 7 or more, that can be modified charge roll, right? So this kind of incentivizes you taking 2 knights units. It can be difficult to guarantee getting 7 on both, of course, but I think particularly with 3 units, it's probably fairly manageable. And then Ties of Chivalry is the old United Court one. Basically, take an objective off your opponent with 1 Serfs model, 1 Knights model, and 1 Courtier model. Super easy. That's going to be one that you do most games, I think, but it incentivizes you to put 1 of each type in every list, which you probably should be doing anyway, so fair enough. Okay, so that's the end of that. Now, I guess we have one more kind of allegiance thing, which is Charnel Throne. It's pretty similar to what it was before, But the only thing it has now is if you're garrisoning it at the start of your hero phase, you get D3 Noble Deeds points. So it's another way to get Noble Deeds points, and particularly useful for units that don't have a good way to get Noble Deeds points, which there's a few of. Okay, so that's the Allegiance abilities. I think super strong, but there's not actually that much that's damage-oriented, right? If you really think about it, how many of these abilities we got so far that's damage-oriented? Not very many. A lot of them are kind of survivability-oriented and hero-oriented. Okay, so just keep that in mind when we read the War Scrolls. Alright, so we've got to start with Old Mate, the new guy on the block, Mr. Assuran, the Mortarch of Delusion. Okay, now, I really hate this kind of unit in Warhammer, so please understand that I come to this with my own set of biases, in that I hate running 460 point monsters that only have 16 wounds, but this one is still very good. Okay, so it's 10-inch move, which is solid, and it's 16 wounds, 4-up save, and basically in combat, it's not bad. So 3 attacks, 3s, 2s, neg 2, d3 plus 3, and then 10 attacks, 3s, 3s, neg 1, 2 damage. So like pretty decent in combat, and of course you could add one attack to that with Feeding Frenzy. Okay, now it's a War Master. It can cast 2, unbind 2, and basically you can pick an additional addition at the start, delusion at the start of your hero phase, and while you hold it within, it goes down, but starts on 30. Then you benefit from that in addition. So I don't think you can pick the same one more than once. There's some argument about that, but I don't think so. So, I mean, realistically, it gives you some flexibility, right? So I think most games you're going to be picking the +1 save one, and then you can use this to pick maybe like the +1 run and charge when you need it, or go the only need 4 points for Feeding Frenzy, stuff like that, right? You can do that instead. One feature of this guy's War Scroll that sucks is he has the Holomorn keyword, because it's literally the only subfaction he doesn't benefit from. Why? Why do you have to do this to us? So literally the other 3, he could be a priest in Blister Skin, he could strikes first in Gristlegore, or he could get an additional Noble Deed point in Morgaunt. So they're just gone, no, you're in the one that you don't do anything in. Yeah, that's quite sad, but I understand. Okay, then we have, his Feeding Frenzy has 24-inch range, but only while he has 6 deed points. So if he has 4 and you pick that delusion, that's not going to count for this rule. You still need to have 6, the way it's written at the moment, for his 24-inch range to apply. If you have 4, then it's only going to be 12 if you pick that delusion. And then Shroud Cage Fragment, he applies basically a stacking bravery debuff to enemy units within 3 at the start of the combat phase. And then you roll 2d6 for each enemy units within 1. Like, I don't like the within 1 thing. I think that's really easy to play around, right? You can just charge, kind of like tag some other unit on the right of him, and then pile it, and you're not going to have to worry about this 1-inch unit, 1-inch strikes last thing. So it's good on your turn, but on your opponent's turn, it's difficult to get this going, I think. He has a 5-up ward, and he can heal 2d3 hero, 2d3 wounds in your hero phase. Solid. And he has this Thanquol-esque spell where basically it's 18-inch range. You pick one enemy unit model within range and attack another enemy model, another enemy unit with one melee weapon that enemy model is armed with. So a bit random. Can be pretty good in certain situations, but most of the time is not going to do very much, I don't think. Can just be like a bit of chip by, attacking a unit with a foot hero or something, right? You can potentially kill a foot hero with another foot hero. I think that can be a decent way of doing it. I think Croak attacking his Saurus Guard with his attacks is actually okay, because it just does 5-up mortal wounds. So if you have 10 Saurus Guards, you can do like 3 wounds to the Saurus Guard. Not bad. What else is in the meta? For example, even like the Screaming Bell attacking some Clan Rats is not bad. You can just kind of get some good chip damage out of this. So sometimes it's going to be amazing, but most of the time it's just going to be like a bit of chip damage. So at 460, do I think that he's worth it? Well, you really have to think as 460 as this guy costs 4 heroes. Now, does he have 4 heroes worth of abilities? I don't know, personally. I I don't think so. I don't think that he's worth 4 heroes, personally. Yeah. So, I've seen him on the table, and he is a little bit better than I thought, because he's very hard to kill. But what ends up happening is, if you take him, is you kind of end up taking, like, 2, maximum 3 heroes after him. And it just means you don't have, kind of that much, I don't know, like, what would the word be? Not that much utility in your army, you'd say. So I know he's giving you the extra delusion, but he's also kind of sacrificing a lot in return. Like, you could have 3 Archregents for his cost, which would be 6 spells and bringing back 9 serfs a turn. And having the potential to bring back 3 units in 1 turn, which can be massive. But Assuran is kind of easier to play with than 3 heroes in a way, right? You can just kind of send him in, do consistent damage with him, like consistently stay on 6 noble deed points. It's really manageable with this guy to like summon a unit at the end of the movement phase for 6 noble deed points, and then hit something, go back up to 6 and do it in the next turn as well. Like, that's super manageable with this unit. So I think I can comfortably give Old Mate here an A. I think I would be losing my mind if I said anything else. I don't think it's an S, because I don't think that this is auto-included, and plenty of builds will not take him, but it's a strong war scroll for what it is. Okay, we have Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. What do I think of this guy? Well, he hasn't really changed, only that he lost his ability to summon units, and his reroll to hit is now conditional on getting a spell off, which is obviously terrible. He has got quite a bit better in combat on his non-Fangmore profile, so the Rider's gotten better with damage 2, and the Mount now has 7 attacks, instead of, I think it was 4 attacks before with D3 damage. Now it's 7 attacks with 2 damage. So even if you don't get the spell off, he's better, but he's still hitting on 4s on his Rider's attacks, which is just terrible. I don't know, man. I really don't believe in this one. The not being able to see for more than 12 thing is nice, but I do think that this guy dying in combat is more the issue. With only 16 wounds on a 4-up save. I think maybe an angle to go is you take the Chalice, and then you take the Mount trait, which heals you 2d3, and then you have heal somewhere else. And then basically you can heal a potential 6d3 in one hero phase, and you can take Bless This Meal and Chalice, and then you have all this healing. But my problem with it is still the reliability of the damage, right? You're still not really getting 450 points of damage out of this guy. So he's quite a selfish unit, unlike Assuran, right? Assuran just like gives you more kind of, I don't know, utility on the board. This unit is more like build around me and I'll be kind of useful. I think that we can, my debate is between C or B. I don't think I would go any higher than that. I think we can go B, okay? Because I can see that if you build around it, it's going to do something. And in Grisagor, it can kind of get strikes first for free. What I really don't like about this guy is that it's actually not even particularly good at getting noble deeds, because it's only the Rider attacks that count, which is only 4 attacks, 3s, -1, 2 damage. So you're not going to get the 6 reliably by any means with this guy. So yeah, I think a bit limited. Okay, now Coach has done the Royal Terrorgeister dirty here and put it after this. I think that this is a terrible war scroll. I think we'd be remiss to put this any higher than D. Okay, now it can come back, which is nice, but I just think the war scroll in itself is so low value. Like this profile doesn't do damage. Like it will occasionally roll 6s on the Maw and do some cool damage, but like getting, for example, one 6 of 6 mortal wounds for 315 points is not worth it, right? I think to make this guy worth it, you need to be able to do like 20 damage in combat, right? And what's the likelihood of this guy doing 20 damage in combat, if we're honest, right? It's really low. Like, even just the Talons, right? This is only going to do like 2 damage to a 4-up save, right? If we're honest about this, right? Because you're going to get 3.5 hits, and then, you know, 2 and a bit wounds. And then, yeah, 1's going to go through, probably. Maybe 2. So between 2 and 4 damage. And then with the Fanged Maw, you're going to get like 50% at getting 6 mortal wounds. So that's like 3 mortal wounds. And then probably you get 1 other one through. And then maybe that goes through. So I think best situation with this guy, we're looking like 13 damage sort of area. Which I just don't... It's just not worth 315 points. So it's a no from me. This one is even worse. Not this one. I'll just do the basic zombie dragon, okay? If you're taking this, it's a troll unit, okay? Take the Terragast if you want to do this, if you want to do the monster thing. Because this one does even less damage than the Terragast does. Okay, this one does no damage. Alright, so this is not the one. Now, the Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon is interesting. Because he can give Flesh Eater monsters run and charge. So, this can be... We can maybe have a Super Friends angle here, right? Maybe we can take the Zombie Dragon with Assurin, and we can have a run and charging Assurin. This guy can give Assurin +1 to hit as well. And this one can go strikes first with Gristlegore. So, maybe we can have an angle where we spend... it is 900 points, right? But we can take this guy and Assurin and send them both in, and then fight with both. And then... He also has some synergy with Assurin because he has basically an ability to turn off Inspiring Presence, and Assurin, reduces Bravery. You could take Grim Garland on this guy and use the monstrous action to basically go to -4 Bravery and then -1 with Assurin, so you could go -5. And there are some armies that's going to massively impact. It can also make the strikes last from Assurin like pretty reliable if they have -5 Bravery, right? Even Bravery 10 units will go down to Bravery 5. So I think that this one is okay. I think that I can put this one a B as well. I think that this is an okay unit. So I think the 2 hero monsters are fine. I don't really like the basic ones. Is basically my my conclusion there. Okay, so that's them. We have Grand Justice Gormain, who, if you're going to take him, is going to be sitting in the shrine the whole game. Okay, now why is that? Well, because he has no way to generate any points on his War Scroll, any Noble Deed points. So if you're going to take him, he's probably just going to be sitting in the shrine the whole game, which is fine, because none of his abilities have any range. So if he just wants to sit in there the whole game, and maybe you're going to use him to achieve your grand strat, like this guy's literally just going to like T-pose in the corner the whole game. You're going to spend all this time painting this model, and basically stick it on the shrine the whole game where your opponent can't really see it. But that's okay. He's just living his best life, alright? He's just standing atop of the shrine. And what does he do? Well, he basically has... It's not a prayer, but it's kind of a similar thing, okay? But basically, you pick one enemy unit, and you give them a judgment in your hero phase. So, the first one is +1 to wounds for any effect units that target them in shooting and melee. Fabulous. 3 up. You can... basically, you can run and charge as long as you finish... what was I going to say? As long as you finish a charge move within half of that enemy unit. Now, this one doesn't have an end condition. It doesn't say the end of the turn. I expect that they're going to change that. But that's solid too. Grievous Insult to the Court, +1 to hit against an enemy unit that's within 3 of an abhorrent. That one's probably less useful, but okay. And then Regicide, if they have killed an abhorrent, then you can get +1 to damage in shooting and melee for units to target them until the end of the turn, which is obviously ridiculously good. So, I quite like this unit. I think if you're going to take him, you probably want to take that Chalice grand strategy. It makes sense, right? Because now you have a dedicated throne sitter. He can just sit there the whole game. His ability to bring back units on the sides of the board doesn't require him being in range. None of his abilities require him being in range. So I think that I was initially a little bit down on this unit because it's all a 3-up. But I do think there's going to be some utility in just having this guy just sit in your throne at the back of the board the whole game, achieve your grand strat, and do stuff. So I quite like this unit. And it's one of the few ways to get run and charge and +1 to wound. So although, he doesn't necessarily have a prayer or a spell, he can still get Noble Deeds points by sitting in the shrine, and that gives him a good roll. So I think that this is an A tier unit, personally. Okay, there's not really another playstyle with him, though. Like, he doesn't do much damage in combat, so I don't think that there's an argument that you can kind of, like, send him in and get points that way. I think just sit him on the shrine. That's his goal in life. Okay, we have the Gore Warden, who's an interesting unit. So he's 12-inch move, 7 wounds with a 4-up save, which is quite nice, and he's fairly decent in combat. All the abhorrence heal D3 in your hero phase. So potentially after you've miscast or primal miscast, you can heal D3, so that can be useful. Now, this lad has an ability where he can basically set up off the battlefield with either a Crypt Flayers or Morbeg Knights unit, and then join at the end of the movement phase more than 9 from enemy units, which is solid. And then he has a spell to pick up one unit who can fly in Hollywood in range and remove that unit and this unit and set them up again more than 9 from enemy units. Now, you can kind of abuse the muster thing here, right? You can like pick up a unit and then muster them at the end of the movement phase and then get further in range and have a short charge, right? So this is not realistically 9. So it could be super good for example, charging with Morbeg Knights, right? You could pick them up and then return one model and then get a really short charge. You could do it with Flayers. It could be super good, right? So, yeah, I think that this is super solid. It's like a little bit of an awkward unit to put in a list because it's like it's not everyone's cup of tea, this sort of playstyle of like, you know, either coming down or kind of teleporting in the hero phase to be more than 9 from something. It definitely tilts into the Flayers playstyle, I think. He does need to be taken as a general if you want to take the Morbeg Knights. I guess because he's a bat and they're a bat. I don't know. It's hard for me not to put this model in A because I think in any other army it probably would be an A. But I just find myself not putting it in lists very much. Because it's just, I don't know. It's nice to have these movement abilities, but when you already come down at the end of the movement phase anyway, if you've died, it's just like it's not that unique in this army, right? Like usually these abilities are super strong if you don't have another way to do it, but since you do in this army, I'm not sure that he's like auto-include. I think we probably want to give him a B in the context of the other A's, okay? It's a strong unit, but I don't think you're going to take it as often as you would think. 150 is a lot in this army. It's going to feel like a lot. Like if you take a Shurin and then something that costs 150, you don't have that much left, right? It's an expensive army, so I'm not fully sold on this lad, but maybe there'll be some specific lists where he's... I mean, there are some specific lists where he's auto-include, right? But it's not every list where you're going to take him. Alright, Archregent. We have our first S tier. You're going to take one of this guy in every single list that you ever play Feckin'. Alright? Now, why is that? Well, he's 2 casts, he's 150, he's decent in combat, decent durability, heals D3, but he has an ability to return slain models like a Courtier, except he's not a Courtier. So he kind of like breaks the supposed relationship we have between Abhorrence and Courtier, so he can do both. And his spell, Carrion Call, lets you move D6 for stuff that's set up at the end of the movement phase. So you bring a unit back, it moves D6. That's obviously great. And he's going to take either Hoarfrost or Deranged Transformation. And you're going to take him in every army. I don't know if you would take 2. I probably would only take 1 in most of my builds. But it's a solid unit. Okay, then we have the Ghoul King on foot. Alright, now, I'm just gonna go ahead and declare my biases here, which is that I love this sort of War Scroll. So just keep in mind, I mean, you guys have seen my core and tier list, right? Where I'm rating Skull Grinders as one of the best units in the book. So just understand I have my personal biases here. I love War Scrolls like this. Now, I don't know how long someone spent on this War Scroll. I suspect not very long, right? But I think, in my head, that what they did is they saw this guy and they said, we need to give him a cape, okay? Because if you look at his model, he's basically Superman flying in the sky, okay? So they thought, let's give this guy a cape, and that cape is in the form of his spell, which basically means he can do a 3-6 charge in the charge phase, in the hero phase, which is so random, and if you successfully charge, you get strikes first in the following combat phase. He can duel, so you can like hit an enemy hero and get +1 damage, so he can go to 3 damage. You could take Flaming Weapon, and he could go to 4 damage, and you could all-out attack Finest Hour, Flaming Weapon, Hoarfrost, and Feeding Frenzy to have 6 attacks, 2s, Ren 3, damage 4, and then you can kill something. Is it worth all the setup for that? Hell no. But it's fun, right? If I'm honest with myself, I can't put this guy any higher than D, okay? But I just want to say that he's more inspiring than some of the D tier units that are in this book, okay? This is not a good unit by any means at all. But for 130, if for some reason you literally cannot get 20 points for an Archregent or a Gore Warden, maybe you take this guy, but I think probably not. But it's okay. It's an okay War Scroll, alright? We have the Cardinal, who's decent, but not auto-include, because you have the Priest Artifact. If you didn't have the Priest Artifact, you would take this guy in every list, but not every list is going to use more prayers than the 5-up Ward one. His War Scroll prayer is decent. Basically, you pick one enemy unit within range, and until your next hero phase, you roll a dice. Each time they receive a command on a 4-up, they have no effect. If it was issue and receive, it would be quite a bit better. Okay, but since it's just receive, at least in this wording, then it's not as good, I think. You know, because there are a few units that like don't receive their command when they do it. So, for example, Glotkin doesn't. So it doesn't actually stop him from using it. So I think that this is a B tier unit, probably. I wouldn't go any higher than this personally for this lad. Okay, then we have the Marrow Scroll Herald, who's the first of 100-point little dudes. He's 5 wounds with the 5-up save. He is a Courtier, so this is the first Courtier we've looked at. He's quite good in combat, and he has 2-inch range, so that's quite good. So 5 attacks, 3s, -1, 2 damage. He has his, you offer your opponent your bone. I didn't think in 2023 we were still offering people bones, but anyway, jokes aside, this is like fine. Honestly, like fairly decent. And he's not visible while he's holding within 6 of 5 other friendly Feck units, which is great. Feck models, sorry, which is great. He's quite good for sitting in just a blob of ghouls or Crypt Guard or something. I think that this is probably one of the best Courtier War Scrolls, which means I have to give it an A. I know that seems kind of weird, but I think it's a really good War Scroll for Cruel Taskmaster, okay? You know, taking this guy with that means that it's going to be hard to shoot him off because you can't see him. There are some abilities in combat as well that require line of sight, and it's not like if your opponent's standing in your face that they can see you with this guy. As long as you've got 5 or more Feck models in range, then he can't be seen. So, really good at avoiding Croak. There's not really a way that Croak can get around this. You basically have to kill the whole unit that he's a part of before you can see him with... what's the spell called? The Croak Bomb. Celestial Deliverance, I think the name is. Yeah, you're not going to be able to see him with that. So, this guy's great for stacking gear on. Perhaps he wants to be spellcasting Savant, right? Super solid unit. We have my personal favorite, the Royal Decapitator. He has Ren 2. It's one of the few sources of Ren 2. Now, when he fights, immediately after he fights, you can pick some Serfs, which is good on your turn, but bad on your opponent's turn because he has 1-inch range. This guy would be so good if he had 3-inch range. Like, he'd be incredible. Instead, he's just, like, okay. And he has the ability where if he'd done any wounds against heroes, you roll a dice and on a 5-up, that hero is slain. That's randomly good against Screaming Bells. If you're running this guy against Screaming Bells, it's just hilarious. He's just like public enemy number 1. It's just the Bells just, I gotta kill this guy. I gotta kill this guy. Because every turn you're just going like, I just gotta get 1 wound through. I gotta get 1 wound through and then roll a 5-up and you're not getting a Verminlord. I just gotta get 1 through. And then you're versing Glotkin. You're just like, I don't care. I just gotta get 1 through, alright? It's the full Hopium unit, alright? But yeah, I would not put him higher than B. Now, why have I put him in B? Well, at the end of the day, it's still a 100-point hero, and this fight after Circe fight can be quite good, right? Because you can get your +1 attack off by killing 6 models with him, or if you've done the prayer, only 3 models, right? Or if he just has some points already. And that means your Serfs are going to get +1 attack. And the Serfs all need the +1 attack desperately. So it's a very good way of getting that without like having to do some weird activation orders. All right, you can just fight with him and then fight with the serfs. So decent. I think everyone thought that this unit's terrible, but I don't really agree. I think that this is a decent unit. The Cryptghast Courtier, on the other hand, is the first F tier. This guy you're never going to take ever because he has literally nothing over the Decapitator. He's worse in combat, less durable, has the same ability. No. Just no. Alright, this is not... You don't take this guy. Alright, this does not exist in this book, okay? Let's just pretend it doesn't exist. Vargo Courtier. Kind of an awkward unit. Like, almost amazing, and then not, in a few ways. So, he's, I think the most durable hero we've seen so far. So, move 10, 8 wounds, 4 up save. He's 165, which is expensive for courtiers. But his combat is great. So, he has, Claws, which is 5 attacks, 3 threes, neg 1, 2, which is the same as the opponents. And then he has his extra profile with the Fangs, which is 1 attacks, 3 threes, neg 2, 3 damage. But you can add 2 to the attacks if you're targeting units that have wounds of 1 or 2 and don't have a mount. And so with Feeding Frenzy, that means that this dagger-like Fangs can be on 4 attacks, which is quite nice. It doesn't have Fly, which sucks. But when it makes a move, he can move across terrain features at least, like a model that can fly. And at the end of the combat phase, if you slain models, you heal D6. And then you can immediately retreat. Now, the thing that kind of stops this guy from being, for example, A or S tier, is that right now, I'm fairly certain that you have to be within 3 or something to retreat. And so that makes this quite difficult to use, because he does do a lot of damage, right? So chances you go in, you do kill something, and then he can't retreat. So it's awkward. It's an awkward unit. If you could go in, if he had Fly... and he just made a move at the end of the combat phase, it would be an S tier unit. It would be, like, insanely good. But, given he can't really hide behind the units anyway, right? Because you have to, like, go around your units and behind them when the 10-inch move without Fly. This guy's going to be super good to put Levitate on, though. But if you don't have that, then you have to kind of go around a unit, so it's hard to protect him at the end of the combat phase. So, realistically, I think that we can give this unit a B for now. But if this gets clarified that you can do it even if you're not within 3 of something, the retreat, then this is going to massively change the War Scroll state. Okay, then we have the Infernal Courtier, who has one of the most frustrating abilities in the whole game, and I hate this. I hate this so much. Playing against this and with this will be the worst experience in almost all of Warhammer, okay? Because this guy... he does absolutely nothing, but then if you do manage to kill a model with his breath, then he literally doubles the damage of your Flayer's output while they're wholly within 9 of him. So every shooting phase is just going to be like... he also has 6 wounds instead of 8. Let me fix this. Every shooting phase is just going to be like... both players just like on the edge of their seats waiting for this guy to shoot. Because if you do manage to kill a model, then... which you will a lot against like low wound stuff, because... he's 4's 3's, neg 2, D3 damage with 4 attacks. You should get one of those through. Probably. But, yeah. If you don't, he does nothing. So, I hate it. But it's good still, because obviously +1 damage is great. So, we're going to put him B tier. But, why do we make War Scrolls that are this frustrating? It's just horrible, right? Like, playing against is just like... oh, what if my opponent just rolls it every time, and then... because if Flayers shoot with this, they do like 33 damage to a 4-up save, which is insane, right? That's better than Fusiliers. So, like, it's insane if this goes off. And if it doesn't, then the Flayers kind of suck, okay? So, that dichotomy of doing something or not doing something based on a singular dice roll is what makes the worst play experiences in Warhammer, and I really do not like this, but it does make Flayers quite a bit better. Okay, the Crypt Haunter Courtier I don't really like. So, he has the same thing as the whatchamacallit, the little Decapitator and the Cryptghast. His combat is decent. He has 5 attacks, 4's 3's, neg 2, 3 damage. It's actually legitimately decent. So it is possible for, like, go in with him, get 6 points, Noble Deeds points, and then fight. Well, what I really don't like about this guy is actually just his defensive profile, right? 6 wounds with a 4-up save. I think if you want to take the Haunted Courtier, you probably want to take that +2 wounds, and then have a 5-up ward while you have 6 noble deed points, because you can go in, hit, get your 5-up ward, and the +1 attack for the horrors. So I think decent for horrors, but I just wish that he was a little bit more defensive. So I think if you take that command trait, he's solid. But yeah, I think he kind of needs to be your general either way. I think that this is a B tier unit. Decent. All right, then we have into the units. Okay. So we have the Crypt Guard. So we have 140 for 10, which is expensive, but they're 6-inch move, 1 wound, 5-up save. They have a 2-inch range weapon. Nice. They're on 25mm bases as well, so you can easily fight in 3 ranks. 2 attacks, 3 strategy, -1. Their banner bearer halves the number of models that run from Battle Shock, which is awesome. They get +1 to run in charge, which is awesome. And if you do wounds to enemy unit, they can't issue or receive commands, so that's really good for like just turning off Inspiring Presence basically, but also turning off like all out attack if they're planning to hit you afterwards. And they have a 5-up ward, and you give Feck heroes hold it within 3 +1 to their ward save. Okay, so if you're taking a Decapitator with the +2 wounds and the 5-up ward while he's got 6 points, he can have a 4-up ward, which can make him pretty survivable actually. Same with the Marrow Herald. So how do I feel about this unit? I think that this unit is excellent. It is kind of an awkward unit role. So it's it's what I call a mid-range unit, right? It's not an anvil, it's not a hammer, it's somewhere in between. It really needs the +1 attack to really start doing damage. So you kind of want to babysit it with a hero. So I think it's ideal to have like either a Marrow Herald or a Decapitator. I probably prefer a Decapitator sitting with these guys, making sure they have the +1 attack from Feeding Frenzy, and then these guys in return will give them +1 to ward. So this is another A tier unit in my mind. Alright, then we have Morbeg Knights. Okay, so they're 150 and they're battle line if you take a Gore Ward in general, which you don't want to do. So that's something that's a bit awkward. But they will get +1 damage on the charge in Hollowborn for their Grizzly Lancers. Okay, so it's a little bit of a complicated profile, but at least initially they have 5 attacks each. 3s, -1, 2 damage in Hollowborn, right? Which makes them better than a Crypt Horror on the charge. So like in Hollowborn, they have the highest damage, right? Yeah, they have the. I guess the horrors maybe slightly. It's probably pretty even with horrors, but they're good on the charge, right? And then when they do charge, they count as 3 models, which is great. And they also get +1 to run in charge with the Hornblower. Now, when they do charge, you can't unleash held them, and then you roll a dice for each model in this unit that's within 1 of that enemy unit, and they suffer D3 mortal wounds on a 4-up. Now, yeah, it's going to be hard to get like heaps of them in range. I'm like not really sure of the base size. I think it's like 70 by 52 maybe. So maybe you can get 6 in range, which is interesting. And they have retreat and charge. The major problem with this War Scroll is just the 9 wounds of the 4-up save, right? For 150, that's really bad. But it's hard for me to not say that this unit's amazing. I'm gonna be honest, like it's really hard because every other aspect of this War Scroll is insane. And when they come back, you can add 1 model and then get a really easy charge. I just have to put them in S tier. Like, I just can't see that there's not going to be a unit that just spams the ever-loving shit out of this unit and that just makes it insane. I know that it's awkward to build a list around them, but I just can't get past the fact that you can bring back, like, if you take a unit of 6, you could, like, bring them back off the side of the board and then bring 3 back and have, like, a 5-inch charge and then do basically 6 mortals when you charge and then count as 18 models on the objective. You know what I mean? Like, the potential is just so insane when it comes back off the side of the board, which means that, okay, yes, the durability is low, but it could be a positive for these guys to die. So you could like, okay, you could aim to kill this unit if you take 6 by the end of turn 2, and then bring them back, and then you know you're going to be in a spot where you're going to be in a really annoying position for your opponent, and like, you know, on the side of the board, possibly charging a really meaty unit. And even if you get caught on them, you can always like retreat and charge in your turn, get into combat. This unit's amazing at doing battle tactics as well. You can take like 3s on the side and just make sure that you can do like surround and destroy and stuff. Really good for doing lead into the maelstrom if you need to, because okay, you can charge in, tag something that you don't want to hit that's not going to kill the other unit, and then even though you're tagged, that would normally be a problem, right? But you got retreat and charge, so you can like go in and do lead in the maelstrom, and it's not going to have that thing that you normally have with lead into the maelstrom, where if you get the double, it can be a negative that you've done it in the previous turn. That's not going to happen with this unit. So I think that this unit's just insane. I know that the 9 wounds of the 4-up save for 150 is a problem, but I just can't see that this unit's not going to just be completely spammed and just be insane. So I'm very positive on the Morbeg Knights. Okay, the Flayers. They have this Escort Courtiers thing, which is like pretty useless because all the units that you would pick up have less than have fly probably. Like if you could pick up a Vargulf with this, it'd be great, but you can't. So you can pick up and then move, but I don't really know what this is for. They have shooting that's like decent and combat that's like decent, but the shooting and combat really is going to rely on making a charge for the +1 damage in combat, because otherwise they do almost no damage, and the shooting's reliant on the Infernal Courtier. So without talking too much about this unit, I think it's pretty obviously a B. It has serious list building issues because the subfaction you want it to be in is Hollowmourne, but it can't get Battle Line in that subfaction. So you probably will take 2 6s in Hollowmourne if you're going to go this way. And that's fine, but it's too reliant for me on getting the Crypt Infernal Courtier to hit something, and I don't want to play Warhammer that way. So it's a B for me. Crypt Horrors, I really like this unit, right? But 130 is plus 20 points. Okay, so they've gone up 20 points. And they've lost massive attack stacking and fighting twice. And fighting twice with a unit of 9 of these is kind of a requirement to actually get them all in range. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Run and Shard is much less reliable than it used to be with this unit, because you used to be able to just click the Hollowmourne button and you would get Run and Charge. They've lost reroll 1s to wound with Hollowmourne, which was quite good. In return, they've gotten +1 damage on the charge, which is nice. And they have that rend, which they've had since the new War Scroll came out. I don't like that they've gone up 20 points, because for this unit to be only 20 points under the Knights, okay, they have 12 wounds with a 5-up save, and the other unit has 9 wounds with a 4-up save, which is like pretty similar, to be honest. And then for the 20 points, the other unit does pretty equivalent damage, is much faster, counts for more on objectives, is way better when it comes back off the side. There's so many positives that unit has that this unit doesn't. So I think that I think that I'm going to be a little bit of a hot take here and put this unit in C. I don't think that this is a good unit in comparison to the Knights, and that's really going to push this unit down. Whereas the Flayers, I can kind of have some hopium of, okay, if you do get the Courtier off, then it's going to be a better situation. Then, you know, for example, if you do manage to get the +1 damage on the shooting and the charge, the Flayers just do the most damage out of any unit in this book, okay? So if you do manage to do that, and the Flayers can really pop off, but it's too conditional for me. Whereas the Horrors, I think, are more or less just worse than the Knights. It's hard for me to see a benefit of taking these over the Knights, personally. Crypt Ghouls. Now, I really wanted this unit to suck because I hate the models and I hate playing with these. But unfortunately, they're really good. So it's 20 for 160, and they basically, if they hit on a 5 or 6 in combat, they automatically wound. Which is kind of insane, right? Because basically it means that, I mean, if wounding on 4s, you can kind of think of it as exploding hits on 5s and 6s, is kind of how you can think about it. Yeah, they get +1 rend. So their damage is actually kind of insane, right? Like, if we just do the math here, okay, if we have Feeding Frenzy on these, and all 20 of them are in range, that's 60 attacks, and you auto hit with 20. Okay? And then you're gonna get 10 more hits, which turn into 5. So you're gonna get 25 going through at Ren 1 for 165 points. Okay? So against a 4-up save, that's going to be, what is it? 18 damage, right? Which makes this unit, how many points per damage? Like 8. 8 point something. Like 8 point something damage. Point per damage. Which I've done a bunch of stats for this sort of thing. And that's insane. It's like insane. Like, in Khorne, I think that the best unit is like 16. So this unit actually does insane damage for its points if you get Feeding Frenzy off, right? Like, it blows my mind. Now, the negative of this unit is that it doesn't really hit with more than 20 ever, because it's only 1-inch range, right? So, comparison to Crypt Guard will do more in bigger blocks, but in terms of one unit of 20 for 160, this unit's just insane. I think 40 is quite good too, and then 60 as a big blob with a 5-up ward is super solid. I'm not really sure what the list is going to be, but based on the War Scroll alone, this just has to be an S tier unit. This just has to be an S tier unit. I'm going to be so surprised if ghouls don't get spammed, but I think you're going to see a bunch of lists that are literally like 260s of ghouls with foot heroes. It's going to be horrible to play against, but even if you don't go that, you're probably still going to take 220s in most lists, alright? I think this is an insane War Scroll. It's just super good. Okay, then we have the Royal Beast Flayers, which in my mind is probably the tankiest unit in the book. I think that this is an anvil, alright? So it's -1 damage against monsters, and it's still basically, it's 20, so it's 14 wounds. So 14 wounds for 115 points on a 5-up save, which is like pretty decent. But the best part about this is that the wounds are distributed in such a way that makes bringing back models with courtiers super good. So you can bring back the 3 wound Flaymaster guys. When you come off the side of the board when they die, my understanding is that you can take like a superhero unit, so like 10 models come back, but you can bring back 4 dogs and 2 leaders if you take 20 beast flayers, and that makes them super high value coming off the side. Yeah, their combat's like okay. It's a little bit swingy with the leader having 2 attacks to 3s, neg 1, 3 damage. Obviously, it's easy to get that to 3 damage. But otherwise, the buffs are not super synergistic with this unit because the basic lads are just 2 attacks, 4s and 4s. So they don't really do anything. It's just the dogs and the leaders. But 20 of these is 28 wounds. Chuck Mystic Shield, have the +1 save from the Delusion and 5-up wards. Super tanky, so hard to get rid of. Synergizes super well with Chalice and coming back mechanics. This is an A tier unit. The only thing that stops it being from S tier is the fact that it can't be battle line for me. Okay, so that's all the units. Let's quickly talk about the endless spells. The Cadaverous Barricade is like a C for me. Alright, it's basically, this is going to stop you redeploying and then your opponent's going to immediately dispel it. Chalice of Assuran is an S. Plus. plus, plus. Insane War Scroll that now moves for some reason. So it literally has like the whole board range. And if you put it in a bad spot, it used to be that you'd had to get rid of it. Now you don't even have to do that. You can just keep moving it around. Your opponent probably will immediately get rid of it, and they should. And if they forget, bless their soul, because this is horrible. Okay, because you can still heal wounds back to effect models, or bring back one slain model to effect unit that has a wounds characteristic of 1. And the Beast Flayers, their unit still has a wounds characteristic of 1, even though they have models that have 3 wounds, and so you can still bring back models with the Chalice. Okay, so you can still bring back 3 wound models when one wound models die in your armies. Okay, which is obviously incredibly problematic, and this War Scroll is insane, and the Corpse Mare Stampede is quite bad. I think this is like a D. This is a no from me. It just doesn't really do much damage. So we've talked about the points as we've gone, but maybe the ghouls should be, maybe this should be A tier. I don't know. I'm gonna put A question mark, S question mark. I don't know, but I think the rest of it makes sense, right? I think the Morbeg Knights are insane. I think the Crypt Guard's super solid. The heroes are mostly talked about, but I don't think there's any like massive standouts here aside from the Archregent. I think that this Gormain lad, I initially didn't put him in lists, but I think you're gonna start to put him in most lists, just sitting in the shrine. That's his like role in life with the Grand Strat. I think super solid. The monsters I'm probably never going to use in my list. The Assuran guy is good, but I don't know if he's worth losing that many points for. So yeah, that's my kind of review of the fact book. I'll maybe have some more videos with lists and stuff, but I hope you enjoyed the video. My voice is a bit stuffed today, as you probably can understand, but that's been my take on facts so far. I hope that was interesting, and I will see you next time.